This episode of Bend the Knee is brought to you by Sir Nicholas, whose words are fealty to one.
Hello and welcome to Bend the Knee, a Song of Ice and Fire podcast. I am Sir Matt, the Bud Knight.
And I am Sir Ezra the Watchful. Welcome to our Song of Ice and Fire book club. Today we are into Chapter 25, Eddard 5 of A Game of Thrones. And in A World of Ice and Fire, we are discussing Aegon Targaryen, 5th of his name, King of the Andals and of the First Men, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms, and Protector of the Realm.
Yeah, Aegon the 5th, Aegon the Unlikely.
Yeah, what did I say earlier? The Maester,
Aemon.
Yeah, no, the Maester, what,
Archmaester Gildane.
No, not that one.
The other one.
What? No, not in the World of Ice and Fire book. What's his name? In the chapter today.
Grandmaster Pycelle.
Pycelle, gosh, dang.
Yeah.
What does he call him? He says, he calls him Aegon the... Oh my gosh, it's gonna come up in the next chapter.
Well, yeah, we'll get it.
It's the opposite of unlikely, and I thought it was very interesting.
The likely, isn't that the opposite of unlikely?
Yeah, I think that would be it. But that's not what is it?
He's half a peasant.
Cool. He is. Interesting character, and really a lot of his downfall is going to come from not really. It's his kids. It's
his kids.
You know. So, anyways. But we'll get there. We like to mention at the top of the show that you can send us a raven at btkcast@gmail.com. Our number is also 614-547-2350. That's the Werewood Network. And what else we got here? I think that's it.
Yeah.
All right. Jumping into the small council, just some updates on life, updates on the show. What's the happenings, you know?
Yeah. Not a whole lot in life. I'll say that.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
You know, it's okay. It's I'm getting now that Sir Ezra has moved. I'm getting ready to move. So I'm just kind of packing things, getting things squared away.
Yeah.
So kind of planning out. Oh, this is where I'm gonna need to stop. As I'm taking the King's Road. I
Yeah,
believe
you
it's
are.
I-80.
Yeah, you're heading out
through the flatlands of Nebraska and Iowa.
You know,
Utah.
Has anyone ever done like compared, like regions of the United States to,
yeah,
like
I've thought of it. I've been thinking of it because
what would you call that?
Well, I don't know. It's tough.
You're going west
because I'm going out to Oregon,
Westerlands.
and then Oregon it's not really the Westerlands though, because in the Westerlands is described. I think it's because it's more based on like England, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think the way it's kind of described, it's kind of rocky and. I don't know. To me, it seems. I think like California. They talk like golden beaches and the Lannisters.
Okay. Yep.
And so I think about where I'm going, and I'm going to Oregon, where, there's like big, huge pine trees, and so I'm like, is it the north?
Right.
But then there's like mountains. So is it like the Vale? But then there's like big rivers. So man, the river. I don't know.
So
I feel like I'm just like north. I'm like northeast of the Trident. It's like wherever specifically that would be.
Wow. So you're
like,
are you above the neck or below the neck?
I think they'd be just above it.
Yeah. So you're getting over there near like White Harbor then, maybe.
Yeah,
or
I think
something.
so. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know. Interesting. We should maybe try to figure that out. We'll have some discussion about it in the group because I don't really know what even Ohio would be.
It's tough.
Like,
I feel like the Riverlands. If I had to narrow it to something,
maybe. Yeah.
I've thought of that too as I've been.
Yeah. Anyways, okay, just something to think about. So yeah, you're getting ready for your move, and I am back to school. It's been crazy these last couple weeks, so we're getting caught up on our Patreon stuff. We had a little business meeting beforehand, some surprises, things coming down the road.
True.
So we're excited, getting ready for Fire and Blood. So
yeah.
we need to be settled in before that book drops.
Oh man, I'm glad that where we're at in the World of Ice and Fire is we're almost actually done with the Targaryen kings.
Yeah, it's a good thing. Yeah.
We have Aegon the 5th.
Yep.
Then we have Jaehaerys the 2nd.
Yep.
And then we have King Aerys. And then that's actually, guys, to be honest, that's kind of it for World of Ice and Fire.
Yeah.
Because after that, it just does smaller house histories
Yeah, which would still do.
We're still doing, but
Yeah.
we honestly could probably do 2 an episode or something because they're much shorter
Yeah.
kind of chapters. They more just kind of talk about the region and
Right, and I think sometimes we've done with those Targaryen kings, it's like we've even moved the reread around because they're so significant. You know what I mean? Just because there's so much there to kind of cover. So with those, it will be back to a nice small maester study. So
before Fire and Blood.
Yeah, for sure. Any news on the show or anything?
Yeah, so Gurr was at I believe it was called WorldCon.
Yeah.
And this is where I kind of told you off air here that there were some questions asked to him. So somebody asked him specifically about Winds of Winter. He said he is still working on it. He refused to answer some questions. One of the questions he did specifically said, "I'm not answering that," was about is there a Clegane sister? He didn't say no. He just said, I'm not ready to answer that.
No way, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Huh.
And then he was actually asked, I believe, by one of the people from History of Westeros about did Bloodraven take Dark Sister
Yeah, I heard about
to
this.
Castle Black, which has long been a huge theory. It is what everyone kind of has, suspected, and Gurr flat out answered yes.
Yeah. He did. Yeah,
Which raises some questions because a lot of people think that there is a Valyrian steel sword in the cave, and that it's Dark Sister.
Right.
But it could also be Longclaw. So
yeah,
but Longclaw we looked up and it seems like if it's not just a random Valyrian steel sword, it's more likely to be Blackfire because Blackfire's a little bit bigger.
Yeah, I think we did some research on that. But I mean, either way, though, it's the idea that because that sword has only been in the Mormont family for what, a couple hundred years or something.
Well, it's been in the Mormont family for 500 years, which actually makes it older than ice.
Oh, okay.
And that's the big thing. We talked about this in a we did a Patreon episode on it.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing, so just some history about Longclaw and what it could be. But regardless, Dark Sister, we know Bloodraven does take north, and it could be in the cave, or it could be the sword that Mormont forgot about.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh goodness.
Had the pommel change.
That's neat though. That's honestly pretty cool. Glad he's out there still answering questions. Glad he's still working, I guess, on Winds of Winter. You think it's done, but
I do think it's done.
So is he lying to us, or what's going on?
Yeah,
if he can lie about that, could he lie about all these answers he's given?
Yeah, maybe.
He can do whatever he wants.
He can do whatever he wants.
Yeah. So, okay, all right. I think it's time to jump into the Maester study. So we'll dive into that. This week we were talking about Aegon the Fifth. Aegon the Unlikely, Egg from the Duncan Egg series.
Yeah.
And I'm going to figure out what else he's called too. Lots of different things.
Here we go. The first act of Aegon's reign was the arrest of Brendan Rivers, the king's hand, for the murder of Aenys Blackfire. Bloodraven did not deny that he had lured the Pretender into his power by the offer of a safe conduct, but contended that he had sacrificed his own personal honor for the good of the realm. If you remember last week, we were in Maegor, which is Egg's dad, and there were a lot of people coming to this council to discuss who should be the next king, and there was a Aenys Blackfire came at Bloodraven. Bloodraven said, "Hey, you should come. It'll be fine. You can
you'll be okay.
You can toss your name into the hat there. We'll it's gonna be a party. We're all we're gonna pick a new king. It'll be totally cool." And then he gets off the ship, and Bloodraven immediately has him arrested and just kills him.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So Egg's like, "Yeah, you're out."
Yeah. Well, and it's one of those things where if you can't trust, the word of the Iron Throne, then it really kind of sets a. It's just not a good thing to have, going on. So.
And it should be noted also that Aegon, does not like Bloodraven at all, and that's more you got to go read
Duncan Egg series.
Duncan Egg series, And actually, I think we decided that's what we're going to do next for our Black Council
Yeah.
series. Is we're just going to do all 3 of those.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun for us.
That'll be a lot of fun, and you get a lot of history because there's so much in it where they actually and they have some interactions, and Egg says some really interesting things about Bloodraven and bastards, and I believe there was a line that says like, in the end, Bloodraven, because he's a bastard, would betray us all. Like regardless of even if tries to be good for the realm, in the end he'll betray us all. So,
treachery. Yeah.
Yeah. What does that mean for the Three-Eyed Crow / Raven?
Yeah.
There's actually a quote I have today we'll get to in the main chapter that old Nan tells Eddard Stark, which kind of goes off what we were talking about in Fallout Friday. So
yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so a lot of Aegon V, comes from his adventuring during those days with Sir Duncan the Tall. But so Bloodraven kills Aenys Blackfire. He gets sent to the Wall, and he actually goes to the Wall with Maester Aemon.
Right. Yep. He does.
Yep. And he takes a band of his own people.
The Raven's Teeth, which is surprising. Like 200 men went with him.
Yeah, 200 very skilled men.
So at that point, they're really reinforcing the Night's Watch up there.
Because these guys all fought in the Blackfire Rebellion. Where they killed Daemon Blackfire.
Yep.
So he goes up there, and then Bloodraven actually becomes the Lord Commander in 239 AC, serving until his disappearance during arranging Beyond the Wall in 252 AC. And then that leaves all kinds of questions, which we're always still speculating about. And,
right. As to what happened. You think about the Raven's Teeth for a second. Wouldn't they have to be sort of to go take the Black? I mean, that to be really devout in some way, like almost
maybe
like
they
thrall,
were. Yeah.
Well,
he is a sorcerer. So.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Did he have them under some type of spell? Were they convinced of something? Was there a greater mission? All that stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting also because they've talked about that the Night's Watch has been dwindling for so long.
Yep.
But you would have to think that this is like 50 years before the main series. They make it seem like the Night's Watch has always been dwindling. Well, you just had 200 skilled people come to the Wall. So what happens to all these guys?
That's what I was about to say. Is there any speculation on are some of these older guys still? Was there someone who was much younger than Bloodraven who was a part of the Raven's Teeth who is still there, doing their thing?
Yeah.
Or were they all killed on a Great Reign? We don't know. What might have transpired up there. So
right with all these.
Oftentimes things happen at the Knights up at the Wall, and they don't ever reach King's Landing. Like the news of it doesn't really, or they don't take it serious.
Yeah, so that's why actually there's not a lot of history about what actually happens at Castle Black.
Yeah,
it's interesting. So there's some stories from the north.
Yeah.
So you kind of got to look at that perspective too. So, all right. Well, Aegon's reign was a challenging one, starting as it did in the midst of a winter that had lasted 3 years and showed no signs of abating. There was starvation and suffering in the north, as there had been 100 years before. In the long winter that reigned from 130 to 135, Aegon was always concerned for the welfare of the poor folk. He did what he could to increase the flow of grain and other food to the north, but some felt he did too much in this regard. And that is going to be a theme in his reign is, we talked about this last week, is that people kind of call him half a peasant because he squired for this hedge knight, and they were living on the road. And
well, I mean, oftentimes he when Dunk is in trouble, his identity is kind of secret, but as they go along, there's different times where his true identity as a prince comes out,
right?
And Dunk doesn't want that to happen, but there's times where he kind of it just does happen, I guess,
Yeah, so for those of you who have not read the Dunk and Egg series, just kind of a brief, very brief overview here is that there's 3 books so far. They plan to be 7. They are from the perspective of Sir Duncan the Tall, who is a brand new hedge knight who literally grew up in the gutters.
Yeah.
And he is going to this tourney at Ashford Meadow.
Yep.
And he comes across this bald stable boy, and it's Egg.
Yeah.
And it's he thinks it's just some poor kid who's maybe sick. Maybe that's why he's shaved his head.
Yeah.
But actually turns out to be, Prince Aegon, who becomes Aegon the Fifth, the king of Westeros, and he is hiding his identity because he hates his brothers. There's a lot more to it. But anyway, so they end up having all kinds of adventures, and they travel around, and he keeps his identity hidden.
Yes. Yep.
He keeps his head shaved, and he is a squire to Sir Duncan the Tall.
Yeah. Well, I think at times he keeps it secret because it could either one keep him safe
or put him in trouble,
or get him in trouble.
Which is we see in the third, the third book.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So yeah, those are the same thing, safe and in trouble. Or it's the idea that Duncan would doesn't want him to rely on that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
he has this. He
trying
has.
to teach him
He has. They keep referencing it in the Duncan Egg series. He has this ring, which has a signet on it, and he can say, "Well, no, look who I am. I am Aegon Targaryen.
Yeah.
You pretty much have to do whatever I say." And the second book, the mystery or the Sworn Sword, excuse me. They're dealing with, these two tiny houses.
Yeah.
Maybe 1,000 people total between both these houses.
Right. Yep.
And Egg keeps saying, "Well, I can just use my ring," and Duncan's like, "No,
right? No, don't pull it out.
Don't do that. We got to figure this out on our own,
right?
Because you can't always just interfere."
Right. Yeah.
And these types of things. So it's really interesting. Yeah. And then the third one, there's actually the second Blackfire Rebellion.
Yeah.
And Egg kind of gets they realize who Egg is.
Yeah.
And it causes some more.
Yeah.
Some more things, but yeah, and then that comes up here too as we go forward in these chapters here. So
right.
So Aegon's rule is tested very quickly. Because the affairs he had meddled in too often as a prince, attempting to reduce their rights and privileges, nor had the Blackfire threat ended with the death of Aenys Blackfire. Bloodraven's infamous betrayal had only hardened the enmity of the exiles across the Narrow Sea. In 236 AC, as a cruel 6-year-long winter drew to close, the fourth Blackfire Rebellion saw the self-styled King Daemon III Blackfire, son of Haegon and grandson of Daemon I, cross the Narrow Sea with Bittersteel and the Golden Company at his back in a fresh attempt to seize the Iron Throne.
Well, and you think about I think Bloodraven at this point in time is sent away.
Yeah, Bloodraven's gone.
They can't help. So it's so in Bittersteel's mind, here's the chance to actually get this done. The Raven's teeth are gone as well. He probably has informants in the realm, and they come back and take him on. And I'm guessing it doesn't say this here. You read between the lines. I thought he would bring Blackfire with him. The big thing with the second Blackfire Rebellion was that the sword Blackfire was not given to Daemon's son.
Absolutely. And in the third Duncan Egg book, A Mystery Night, when Daemon II is trying to get everyone to rally to him, he raises this sword above his head, and it says they could all see that it was not Blackfire. It was
not Blackfire.
So, and Bittersteel wouldn't give him the sword because he felt he was
too
bookish.
So do you think, though, Sir Matt, that that Bittersteel brought the sword or maybe gave the sword to Daemon the third Blackfire?
I don't know. I would feel
because
like
Dunk takes him on, right? Wouldn't it be crazy? Dunk is fighting against the sword Blackfire.
It would be.
That would be nuts.
It would.
Because I guarantee you, if they continue on with that series and stuff,
we'll
to hear from his perspective,
we're gonna find out.
Just knowing our Dunk and having read the way he is written, he would just be blown away. Like, oh, he's got the sword.
I know.
It's almost like I'm fighting against the Blackfire sword.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
But so eventually they land right on Blackwater Bay.
Yep.
But few rallied to their banners. King Aegon V himself rode out to meet them, and that's something it says here.
Mm-hmm.
There's a line here later. It says
he was often.
He spends most of his time in armor.
Right.
So my question is, how good is Egg as a fighter?
I mean, he again squired for one of the greatest knights of all time.
Right.
So, he knows how to command, I think, and he goes out with his sons too.
Yeah.
His sons are, armored up and ready to go. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyway, that gets pretty much put down. Daemon III is slain by the Kingsguard knight Sir Duncan the Tall, the hedge knight from whom Egg had squired. Bittersteel eluded capture and escaped once again. This is the third time he's escaped. Escaped capture here. Only to emerge a few years later in the disputed lands, fighting with his sellswords in a meaningful skirmish between Tyrosh and Myr. It says he finally dies at the age of 69, and when he fell, it was, as he said, he died as he lived, with a sword in his hand and defiance upon his lips. But then the Golden Company and the Blackfire line seem to continue on for a bit. So, so Egg has a lot more squabbles he has to put down. And essentially what it's from is he, as we kind of said, it all kind of comes to his kids.
Yeah, well, just one thing before that, it's his kids is like the next big part. But like the reason that the other, I guess major kingdoms have beef with him is because of all the rights he gave to the small folk.
Right.
And they saw that he was like
he kind of puts the power back in the people.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, and again that's why he was mocked for being like one of the small folk,
Right.
So, but yeah, then the next big thing, and it's both things simultaneously kind of plague, I think, his reign. But yeah, his kids, man. I mean, it's since he is Egg the Unlikely, and he wasn't planning on becoming king,
because he was actually planning on being in the King's Guard.
Yeah, that was what I'm about to say. Is that the reason I think he wants to wear armor and rides out himself is because he always had this, in his mind that he was going to grow up to be a knight himself.
Right.
And so now he's king, and he gets to ride out, with his knights.
Right. And I will say, in the Duncan Egg series, you actually get his kind of thoughts on a lot of the realm. Mm-hmm. And it is interesting because it's the only time we get it. Like, the thoughts of a young prince.
Yeah.
Well, we get it with Joffrey as well. Actually, it is kind of interesting comparing Joffrey's thoughts to Egg's.
Yeah.
In that they're similar, but Egg is obviously far more nicer and understanding. And of course, we don't like Joffrey because we know Joffrey is not legitimate, whereas Egg is. Yeah. Egg is legitimate.
Yep.
And so I think there's just, even though like some of the points are kind of similar, they're different because Joffrey is much more, I'm the prince, I get to do whatever I want, and everyone has to deal with it. Egg is much more about, this is how things should be done. This is the right way to do things.
Right. Yeah, because he's more of an evaluator. He is not even, in his mind, he'll never, like when he's born, he's out with Dunk in these different adventures. He doesn't think he's going to be king. He has all these brothers ahead of him.
Right.
Plus, when it's like it's his father's brother is king. And so he is Egg the Unlikely. He's Aegon the Unlikely for a reason, and I think that really does shape and mold who he is as a person. So he, unlike Joffrey, he didn't grow up thinking, I'm going to rule this place one day.
Right. Well, and the other difference is with Joffrey, his dad destroyed the Targaryen line, ended it, and with air quotes. I mean, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But with Egg, we see him talking you see it much more in the second book than in the others, where he's talking to Eustace Osgrey, who the Checky Lion.
Yeah, the Checky Lion.
Eustace Osgrey, who has Standfast, who has like one castle and like I think 12 like farmers. You know what I mean? Like that's the entirety of his kind of lordship area. But he fought for the Black Dragon, Daemon Blackfire.
Right. Yeah.
And he's explaining to Egg why he chose Daemon Blackfire, and you get Egg's perspective on things, and Egg's like, Darren was good, Darren the good. That's just what he hears. It's these stories,
right?
Kind of thing. Yeah, it's similar actually to Sansa, and Sansa talks about like the stories she hears.
Yes.
Of these knights and how they were gallant, and Littlefinger, and so other people are like, oh, were they? Like, and you kind of get that similar thing happens with Egg, where Eustace Osgrey is telling him, he's like, well, it didn't matter. He's like, you could tell just by looking at the difference between Darren and Daemon. He's like, who the real king was.
Yeah. And
Eustace Osgrey says Daemon Blackfire is the greatest swordsman of that time. He lists like everybody else, including even I can't remember his name, the current Dane,
one of the Danes,
Sword of the Morning. He's like, he was far better than all of them.
Yeah. That's crazy. It's really interesting.
And they said, and when he had the sword Blackfire in his hand, you just knew.
Yeah. 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 So I don't know.
And so anyway, so you get you get this kind of, you get Egg's internal battle, his struggle to see how he should rule and things like that. And he talks about like bastards not being like it's always going to end in deception. And
right. And another thing he's been taught, things
Right.
that the singers and the poets have written about, is that you can't trust a bastard type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. When and it evolves right over time, so you get to see this evolution, in his thought process. And I think as he gets closer and closer to being, crowned king, it's or being in contention for the crown. Because even once it like comes down to him, it's like they had to have another council,
Right.
to pick him to be king. You
Right.
know, so. Yeah, he really comes in with a different perspective. The one thing I was driving towards there for a second is that he marries young.
Yes, he does marry very young.
At like 20. Well, actually, people have married younger. But,
Right. Yeah. People marry like 12 or 9.
Right. But he marries for love.
Yes.
And no one cared because he's way out of line. So
Yep.
it's like if you want to marry some, like a lower house girl, fine. She was still one of the, what was it, Betha Blackwood?
Betha Blackwood.
Yeah.
Who's still it's still a noble house.
Right. It's just
It's not some random person.
Right,
Like who his son marries.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that's where all the trouble starts. But real quick, there's one other thing it mentions here. It talks about he feels like if he could bring dragons back,
Yep.
he could really restore the realm the way it should be. And that's something we see in the third Duncan Egg book, A Mystery Knight. Daemon Blackfire II, who they put down, he actually thinks the same thing. Daemon Blackfire gets a dragon's egg, and they have green dreams.
Yeah.
And he's if I can get this, a dragon will awake at this tourney.
Yeah.
And they
Yep.
believe it is an actual dragon.
Right.
And what it is it's Egg. Egg actually, at the end of it, he's like wearing the ring, and he's like, "No, I am Aegon,
Yeah.
the Prince Targaryen." That's kind of how it's going to end, right? When he's telling kind of Bloodraven off.
Right.
Which is interesting because Bloodraven at the time is the hand.
Yeah.
And you can just tell he doesn't like him right then and there.
Right,
You can tell. And he's like, I'm Prince to whatever.
Yeah.
Because Maekar is not king at that point.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just because you're hand of the king, that doesn't. I mean, you still have got the princes.
Yeah.
You still got the next.
He still outranks him.
Yeah. Exactly. So you're still part of the royal
technically,
family.
because.
Well, yeah, you're right.
I mean,
okay.
like,
He's not a bastard.
Yeah,
all right.
I mean, technically he's a prince too, but like,
gosh dang it.
nobody really uses it that way. But
Yeah.
so essentially, that's another thing, and that will ultimately be his downfall, which we'll get to here. But so he has some problems with his kids, and that his kids also mostly want to marry for love.
Right.
His first son, so he has 3 sons: Duncan, Jaehaerys, and Darren.
Right.
And 2 daughters, Shiera and Rael. It had also long been the custom of House Targaryen to marry
Brother to sister.
incestually,
Yeah.
brother and sister, cousin, something like that. But for whatever the cause, Aegon V had been convinced that such incestuous unions did more harm than good. Instead, he resolved to join his children in marriage with the sons and daughters of some of the greatest lords of the Seven Kingdoms in hopes of winning their support for his reforms and strengthening his rule, especially because he gives so much power to the small folk and kind of burns these noble houses. With the help of Black Betha, which is Betha Blackwood, a number of advantageous betrothals, advantageous betrothals, excuse me, were made and celebrated in 237, whilst Aegon's children were still young. Had the marriages taken place, much good might have come of them, but his grace had failed to account for the willfulness of his own blood. Betha Blackwood's children proved to be as stubborn as their mother, and like their father, choose to follow their hearts when choosing their mates. His eldest son, Duncan, I wonder where he got that name, Prince of Dragonstone and heir to the throne, was the first to defy him. He was betrothed to a daughter of House Baratheon of Storm's End. Duncan became enamored of a strange, lovely, and mysterious girl who called herself Jenny of Oldstones.
Wow.
We'll have a lot more of that here in a little bit. 239, whilst traveling to the Riverlands, though she dwelt half wild amidst ruins and claimed descendant from the long-vanished kings of the First Men, the small folk of surrounding villages mocked such tales, insisting that she was only some half-mad peasant girl and perhaps even a witch.
Yeah. So did he really fall in love with her?
Yeah, it's some interesting thing. So he tries to do everything he can to stop this from happening, but Duncan actually gives up his claim to the throne.
He gives it up
for this. Says, nope, I denounce my claim to the throne. He ends up marrying her, and Sir Duncan the Tall has to go fight Lionel Baratheon, because Lionel Baratheon puts up a revolt. Now, interesting thing is that Lionel Baratheon had fought with Sir Duncan the Tall at the Trial of Seven that we talked about a little while ago, is where he beats up Egg's brother, Aerion Brightflame.
Yep.
And he ends up getting put in this Trial of Seven. This is where Baelor Breakspear dies, but Lionel Baratheon fights on the side of Sir Duncan the Tall.
Yeah. Yeah, it's radical. It's like I think so. Duncan, his son, was betrothed to his either daughter or granddaughter.
Yeah.
And he was gathering. Was he gathering forces? Anyway, there's a trial though by combat, essentially. Yeah, and Sir Duncan has to take him on.
Yeah. A short bloody rebellion ensued, ending only when Sir Duncan of the Kingsguard defeats Lionel Baratheon in single combat. And then, this is actually huge right here, is Aegon gives his solemn word that his youngest daughter, Raelle, would marry Lord Lionel's heir. So that is actually what Robert Baratheon uses as his claim to the Iron Throne. Yeah. Because he is also of Targaryen descent, in that he was his grandmother.
Right.
Yeah, so that's actually a big deal, because that is also, I mean, I think he could have done it regardless, but that is a reason as to why, I think some people, they talk about it a little bit, they talk about this blood tie is why Ned Stark doesn't claim the throne. I mean, not that we know Ned does not want it.
Yeah, I get
but
you,
that's
though.
why people kind of also rallied behind Robert, was because there was also this.
There's a tie.
There was an actual tie to the. So he actually has somewhat of a legitimate claim here, is that he is actually of Targaryen blood. So,
yeah, well, and so so he doesn't slay Lord Lionel.
No,
Baratheon.
he just beats him.
He just beats him in single combat.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool.
and then to kind of smooth things over, here you go. Here's my daughter.
So that's
she's your cupbearer now, which is cool.
Yeah, and then she goes and starts ward. So then we get a little more here about Jenny of Oldstones. We talked about this a while ago. Was accompanied to court by a dwarfish albino woman who was reputed to be a woods witch in the Riverlands. Lady Jenny herself claimed in her ignorance that she was a child of the forest.
Maybe
Ghost
she was.
of High Heart.
Yeah, I mean, Ghost of High Heart.
That's who it is, I think.
Yeah, Ghost of High Heart. Yep.
So it's interesting. We're now at this point where we're getting all ties to the main, the main story here. So So anyway, so then Jaehaerys, Dunk's second son, now is the new Prince of Dragonstone, heir to the throne, because Prince Duncan is removed from the line.
Right, Prince Duncan there, I just said it earlier, did Jenny somehow bewitch him
possibly
into something? And now knowing, right, she's got this Ghost of High Heart, dwarvish, albino woman who, is a woods witch, I don't know, it could happen. It could be some, devious plot.
Yeah.
There could be more to the story. It's very, very open-ended here.
Yeah.
All right.
And then, Jenny of Oldstones also gets finally accepted at court. People kind of accept her. Lady Jenny, as she was called by courtesy, which is interesting because Ghost of High Heart calls her my Lady Jenny. I mean, it's not confirmed, but I mean, that's as close to being as confirmed as you can kind of get. So now you have Prince Jaehaerys, and he also kind of breaks what Egg wants, and he wants to marry his sister. And they basically run off and get married.
Yeah,
together.
It's crazy. That would be really something normally. That's that's a no-brainer. Right. And yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of shocking, isn't it?
It is. And the funny thing is that Egg says this incest can lead to bad problems.
Yeah.
Well,
it does.
I think it does.
Yeah.
Because his son, Ares the Second, Ares the Mad King.
Yeah.
So, I guess old Egg was right.
Yeah, he was. He sure was.
Aegon's right. Yeah, but they basically run off and get married, kind of
Secretly.
secret wedding. Yeah. So, just like his grandson, King Jaehaerys' grandson, Rhaegar.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so he has to deal again with wounded pride and anger of the noble houses, thus affronted.
Yep.
Yeah.
And by the time they learned about what happened, the marriage had already been consummated.
That's right. Yeah, it had already been consummated.
Moving quick.
Yep.
So, yeah. Once again, says, Jaehaerys had been betrothed to Celia Tully, daughter of Lord of Riverrun, and Shiera had been supposed to be married to Luther Tyrell, the heir at Highgarden.
Yep, so they're jacking up all of his plans, aren't they?
Yeah. Jaehaerys and Shiera would have 2 children, Aerys and Rhaella. Those names sound familiar. On the word of Jenny of Oldstone's Wood Witch, goes by heart, Prince Jaehaerys determined to wed Aerys to Rhaella, or so for the accounts of his court tell us. King Aegon washed his hands of it in frustration, letting the prince have his way.
Yeah.
Wow, sounded like some
on the
real interesting thing.
Yeah, of Jenny of Oldstone's Wood Witch.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
wow,
is Jenny of
Oldstone's
really
actually
is Jenny of Oldstone's actually just a person, just a normal girl, and she's been
she's being played by this
Woods Witch.
Woods Witch.
Well, what if this Woods Witch is actually from the line of First Men, or Jenny is?
Yeah.
Or what if the Woods Witch makes her believe she is? Or what if the Woods Witch is actually a Children of the Forest?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then she sets up the Mad King.
Yeah. Set this whole thing in.
Set the whole thing up.
Yeah.
The whole thing could be hinged on this one right here.
This person. Yeah.
Right here.
Who is this person?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy to think that there's so much the influence that this person would have there. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
I mean, the whole series could be right here. I'm just saying this one little line right here could be the whole thing.
On the words of Jenny of Oldstone's Wood Witch, Prince Jaehaerys determined to wed Aerys to Rhaella. Wow.
Rhaegar.
So the Woods Witch
more incest.
Right. So but what is what is she seeing?
Exactly.
From this
Well, we have to go look at her stuff from the Arya chapter.
Yeah. I'm just saying there's a reason for this, right? Is it does it go into the prince that was promised? Is some of that stuff passed down? I don't know. I mean, it's a lot.
I don't know. This is what we have. So we get ravens a lot, and people are just comment sometimes on Facebook where people tell us they love the show, which we always love and appreciate. But we get a lot of people that say like, I don't really know this history stuff, and I would say almost all up until this point, a lot of it's just whatever is in this books, and there's little lines here and there, but now we're at this part where this stuff is like we're here, like
some of these people could actually still be in the series much older,
and even still this is all stuff that's happening like 50 years before, so all this stuff is influencing directly what we see,
right?
Yeah Because think about that, the Tyrells and the Tullys were promised to also marry into House Targaryen. That would drastically have changed.
Yes, it would have
everything. Well, the Tyrells do fight on the side of the Targaryens, but the Tullys do not. In the battle in the Robert's Rebellion.
It'd be interesting to go back and look and see which of the great houses, how many of them did marry into with the Targaryens.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially that,
think about this. Had all this happened, Robert's Rebellion may have never happened.
Right. Yeah.
Because he wouldn't have been able to raise enough.
It's just another great council where they decide, who's next.
And I think it's all this Woods Witch.
This Woods Witch, man. Wow.
Literally set up.
Good grief.
So, all right, here we go. Corrupted by the example of his brothers, and eventually King Aegon's youngest son, Prince Darren, vexed his father in like manner. He was supposed to be betrothed to Lady Olenna Redwine. Now, Olenna Redwine ends up marrying into Tyrell. That's the, what's her name? The Queen of Thorns.
Queen of Thorns, yeah.
So she was even supposed to marry.
Yeah. And the red wines are a big deal. They're fleet and stuff.
Yeah, they're kind of like the Umbers or the Karstarks of the Reach.
Yeah.
I mean, they're big.
Yeah.
So that falls through. Prince Darren repudiated the match when he was 18, and he remains unwed throughout the remainder of his life. And so this is what ends up happening here is another big battle. coming. The final Blackfire kind of rebellion.
Yeah.
In 258 AC on Essos, another challenge rose to Aegon's reign when 9 outlaws, exiles, pirates, and sellsword captains met in the disputed lands beneath the Tree of Crowns to form an unholy alliance. The Band of Nine swore their oath and mutual aid to support in carving out kingdoms for each of their members. Amongst them was the last Blackfire, air quote there, Meleys the Monstrous, who had command of the Golden Company and the kingdom when they pledged to win for him was the 7 kingdoms. Prince Duncan, when told of the pact, famously remarked that crowns were being sold 9 a penny. Thereafter, the Band of Nine became known as the 9 Penny Kings in Westeros. And they kind of build up some more power over there in Essos before they end up turning their idea like let's go, I guess.
Right, they're kind of gathering their forces.
On King's Landing there. But so an intent on one more thing, dragons. As he grew older, Aegon V had come to dream of dragons flying once more above the 7 kingdoms in Westeros. So I just want to mention that as we kind of get here. I guess does it talk about? Oh, because the 9 Penny Kings goes on into Jaehaerys.
Jaehaerys,
yeah. So it doesn't end. It doesn't end.
So they kind of start. He's hearing rumors of it towards the end of his reign. Yeah.
Yeah, but it is pretty. It is also somewhat of a spoiler, I guess.
Yeah.
It is put down, and we'll get more to this next week. Pretty shortly, once the new, who will become the new Lord Commander of the Kingsguard.
Oh yeah.
Then a knight, Sir Barristan Selmy, slays him in single combat. And Sir Barristan Selmy, it doesn't say, it must not say this here, but it is said later that he had done it. So at some point during Aegon's reign, when Sir Duncan is Lord Commander, Barristan Selmy beats Sir Duncan the Tall at a tourney.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what makes him,
Right, gets his renown.
Uprise, yeah.
Yep. And so he's looked at more by the Kingsguard and stuff.
Yeah.
It's such a cool thing because the Kingsguard, they're like scouting at these tourneys, looking for, younger upcoming knights, who they can kind of, like it's what they did with Jaime, and they're proud to take them in,
Yeah.
So
now we kind of get to the last kind of years of Aegon's reign here. They were consumed by a search for ancient lore about the dragon's breeding of Valyria, and it was said that Aegon commissioned journeys to places as far away as Asshai by the Shadow with hopes of finding texts and knowledge that had not been preserved in Westeros. The Dream of Dragons was grievously a tragedy born in a moment of joy. In the fateful year 259 AC, the king summoned many of those closest to him to Summerhall, his favorite castle, there to celebrate the impending birth of his first great-grandchild, a boy later named Rhaegar. To his grandson, Aerys, and granddaughter, Rhaella, the children of Prince Jaehaerys. It is unfortunate that the tragedy that transpired at Summerhall left very few witnesses alive, and those who survived would not speak of it. A tantalizing page of Gildane's history, surely one of the very last written before his own death, hints at much, but the ink was spilled over at the time. Some mishap blotted out too much. So from the history of Archmaester Gildane.
This is great, guys. This is great.
The blood of the dragon gathered in one. 7 eggs to honor the 7 gods. Though the king's own septon had warned, pyromancers, wildfire, flames grew out of control, towering, burned so hot that died. But for the valor of the Lord Command.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
what can you, when you go look at that, it gives you some clues.
Yeah.
I think you can speculate a little bit as to, I think we'll have an episode eventually where we speculate as to what happened at Summerhall, because I just had some new ideas right from that reading there.
A lot of people argue that a dragon was born.
Absolutely.
Rhaegar.
Except for the flames. Oh, that. No, I was going even a little bit further. Tinfoil hat and everything. Flames grew out of control. Burned so hot that,
Right.
that what would have died or who would have died,
Well,
but for the valor of the Lord Commander.
Right. So, there's so many things. At the end of A Night of 7 Kingdoms, the abridged version that you can get on Audible, the yellow book, right? That's all 3. So not if you buy them individually. at like the end where they just say it's kind of like the James Bond will return.
Yeah,
thing,
exactly.
Right,
yeah.
right. Or Thor will return in the next Marvel movie, whatever.
Yeah.
They talk about that. This is like the end of the beginning. So there's more tales to come. And then they say like even to far off lands as Ashai.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's interesting. So there's a lot of theories of what happens at Summerhall. Most people believe that Aegon V says, let's use wildfire to wake these dragons because he gets a bunch of dragon eggs.
Yeah.
So there's so many things that could come here.
Right.
So I, first of all, don't think Egg or Dunk die here.
Okay.
Just don't think so.
I don't either.
I don't know. I just don't.
I actually think
the fact that Gurr. So the whole ink blot thing here is that Gurr when they were writing this book, he's like, I'm not ready to tell that part yet.
Yeah.
So I can't have you write down what happens.
Yeah.
And he actually had wanted them to put an actual ink blot.
He had, yeah.
In the thing, but then they were worried that people might
return their books.
Return their books. Yeah. Because the World of Ice and Fire book, for those of you who aren't like I guess familiar with it, it's this big, nice. It's like a coffee table book, right?
Very nice.
Big pictures, like it's really, and it's written
great.
like a tome. I love it. It's
beautiful.
It's amazing. It's beautiful. And so that's why he kind of wanted it to look like that. It's not like a little text, like a novel.
Yeah.
But so there's so many things here. So I don't think we know how many dragon eggs he gets, but what if some of the dragon's eggs that survive? So what if some of the dragon's eggs that survive are the ones from Daenerys? Now we know Magister Illyrio says these came from wherever, but they could be these.
They could be, yeah. I mean, it sounds like there are more eggs kind of around during his time.
Right.
Or he searches, because he gathers them. The blood of the dragon gathered in 7 eggs to honor the 7 gods. You know what I mean? So there's some sort of ceremony going on there. And definitely he's definitely trying to bring back dragons.
Right.
You know,
I don't know if Egg said, let's use wildfire. What if it was Ares who says, let's use wildfire?
Can I also mention
or
here?
Jenny of Oldstones and this Wood Witch.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if something does happen here because Jaehaerys is not here. Jaehaerys survives.
Right, Jaehaerys survives.
So maybe some of his other children survive as well.
Aerys survives. Rhaegar survives.
Yeah. So anyways,
and Rhaegar comes back.
Right.
To like sing, right? At the
So
Summerhall.
My thinking is
he looks longingly about Summerhall and like thinks about what happened.
Yeah. And so here we go. This is tinfoil hat territory, okay?
Yeah.
But the Ghost of Highheart, let's follow me for a second here.
Yeah.
Comes, with her witchcraft, and she's trying to set things up, and who knows what she's working towards. And Egg is against it, right? Maybe there's two conflicting, wills going on here, and he feels like he needs to take. Maybe they do, actually succeed in bringing a dragon,
right?
Out of these eggs, and maybe he takes it to Ashai, because we find in the series that there are dragons currently in Ashai,
and we know that he goes there,
So could he take it there and put down his crown and give it to his son and disappear, fake his own death, not fake it, but
so this is where things get kind of weird for Gurr's writing, because the only two characters that I feel like that the people argue this is a Song of Ice and Fire. This is, we don't like when you look at the main series. Is Jon Snow going to live? Yes or no?
Right.
The Dunk and Egg books, however, are written for a different audience. Like they're
they
almost kids' books. They're not meant to be this big over Song of. They're totally different.
Yep.
So oddly enough, the only two characters who I feel like who are completely safe from Gurr's maniacal, like I'm just gonna kill these people off.
Yeah.
What very humanistic are Dunk and Egg, because they're just it's meant for a different.
Yeah.
It is. It's so weird because it's not like when you look at other things, like we look at Star Wars and you have some people maybe have no idea who I'm talking about here, like Kyle Katarn and some of those people.
Yeah.
They all still fit inside the Star Wars universe.
Right.
Dunk and Egg in an odd way, don't fit into what we think of. If you read the main Song of Ice and Fire series and then you go read these books,
right,
they're totally different.
Yeah, they are. They are. I'm thinking, in my mind, if this is sort of like more, not maybe for children, but just like a lighter tale.
Right.
I mean, why
I
wouldn't
just don't
a
see
king...
Sir Duncan the Tall dying in a fire.
No. Let me tell you exactly.
Or egg.
What I think would be great if I had to write this is that there's a reason why he had to, like, he faked his own death. He sets up his sons. He doesn't want the crown. It's nothing he ever wanted. He reminisces to the days when he and his hedge knight used to,
Well, what I would love.
I think he goes to a Shai. I think he travels.
I would love if Sir Duncan the Tall dies from a chill. Just like Sir Arlen of Pennytree, and then Egg has to bury him, or some other young, other young knight.
Yeah.
Or what if? So maybe they don't go to a Shai. What if this is when Sir Duncan the Tall finally goes to Dorne?
Yeah.
And
Tanzel.
gets with this girl Tanzel Too Tall, who he loves, and maybe him and Egg go. Yeah. I don't see Duncan Egg dying here.
Yeah. Well, or at least not both of them. So I would say both of them live, but I would also say that if one of them has to die, if Dunk did die, then I would see Aegon putting the crown down and saying, I'm going to, in honor of my old friend, travel. And put my old cloak on, dust off my kind of like Bilbo going off for his own adventure again, just one last time.
Yeah. So anyway, that is Aegon the Fifth's reign, and it's kind of a weird Maester study today, but it's because it's the only Maester study. We have the novellas, but even those are still written more like this World of Ice and Fire book,
right?
Whereas it's not. We don't have a first person view.
For sure,
you really to understand how different the writing is for Aegon the Fifth. You have to go read Knight of Seven Kingdoms.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I know we plug it all the time.
We do,
but here's a different plug that I'm going to give people: is that if you've been listening and you're not sure, it is very short. I think it took us an hour or 2 hours.
It's 10
to listen.
10 hours for the whole thing. All three books.
All 3 books. So that's a couple hours, 3 hours each book.
Exactly.
That's not bad at all, And so, and you get a full story and all of that, and you get a lot of. It actually makes the history because they repeat the names so often that you really start to. If the Maester study's ever been confusing to you, when you read a text like that, it actually. They kind of regurgitate the names so often that it makes sense.
Yeah.
So they start to kind of fit together in your mind, and they give you cool things to connect with. So go buy it. Or wait till our next Dragon Egg contest, and I'll buy it for you and send it to the winner. Okay?
Yeah. So but so that is Aegon the Fifth. It is just we don't really know actually what happens. I don't think it just says. Does it actually say that he dies there? It just says. No, actually,
it doesn't.
It doesn't say that he dies. It just says at the beginning of the next chapter, Jaehaerys II. The tragedy of Summerhall brought Jaehaerys, the second of his name, to the Iron Throne. Doesn't say that Aegon the Fifth died. Just says it brought him to the throne.
Exactly.
Could be a big conspiracy.
Yeah, he had to be very careful in how he wrote that because we often think that there's a tragedy there. Cool. Yeah, some people died, for sure. And you know what? Could you also see if he lost some of his close friends and family, how he would be sort of like I'm not worthy of the crown. Right. It needs to go on to someone else.
I would love though if somehow it came full circle, and because Egg's whole thing is we have dragons, we can restore the realm.
Yeah.
If he finds or somehow maybe those dragon eggs are there.
Yeah.
He gets the 3 eggs that ultimately go to Magister Illyrio, and then those end up going to Dany.
Yeah,
and then that is like the full circle thing.
Yeah, and he's involved in that. Yeah,
right.
That'd be cool.
And again, you could argue that's too simple. That's too for a Song of Ice and Fire, but Duncan Egg is it's so different. It's to be honest, it's like a kid's book.
Yeah, it kind of is.
I mean, it's not really
right.
But because we've had people that have messaged us that have said
it's a very happy feel to it. It's got a very
it's a short story right.
There's not a lot of
there's definitely
complexities.
There's definitely death and stuff like that.
Yeah. but the intricacies and the complexities of Song of Ice and Fire are not necessarily there. There's they are like there are some layers to it for sure.
Well, there definitely are.
Because you pulled out some stuff that I was like, wait, what? He said
that ties into the
main series and kind of some foreshadowing, but anyhow, okay.
All right. Well, that's people are like, oh, you guys are just Duncan Egg supporters. Well, we are.
Yeah, we are. So, all right, time to jump into the reread here.
Main thing. So last week we were in Bran 4. Bran is roused from his depression when he is called to the Great Hall of Winterfell to receive Tyrion Lannister. Despite Robb's rudeness, Tyrion provides plans for a saddle that will allow Bran to ride his horse once more. So this week we're in Eddard 5. Last time, Eddard 4, immediately upon his arrival in King's Landing, Ned was summoned to a meeting of the small council to plan a tournament. Afterward, Littlefinger intercepts him and leads him to where Catelyn is hiding, where they plan their strategy for justice.
Mm-hmm.
So this week, Ned speaks with Grand Maester Pycelle about Jon Arryn's final days. On his way back, he finds Arya training to be a water dancer on the steps of the Tower of the Hand. Later, he is visited by Littlefinger, who has found 4 of Lord Arryn's household remaining in King's Landing. So, okay,
right.
This one is actually split up into halves here this week.
Okay.
Lord Arryn's death, and that one is mine.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Yeah, and it's a shorter chapter, so we split it into halves. Yeah. And I think we get some insight into Grand Maester Pycelle, and I'll find it here in a moment, but it was at the top of the show I was talking about the kings under which he had served.
Yeah.
And he kind of goes backward. He's been Grand Maester for Robert, for the Mad King, for... help me out here. Jaehaerys, right? And then
the only other one would be Egg.
Egg, yeah. So those are the ones who he has been either a maester or at least Grand Maester. Was he Grand Maester for Egg? I think even just for a little bit, maybe.
So was it him?
Yeah.
Who started the fire?
Who started the fire? Yeah. I mean, there's exactly. So I'll find it here in a second here as to what he called.
I'm just going to go ahead and read the first little paragraph here.
Okay.
Lord Arryn's death was a great sadness for all of us, my lord, Grand Maester Pycelle said. I would be more than happy to tell you what I can of the manner of his passing. Do be seated. Would you care for some refreshments? Some dates, perhaps? I have some very fine permissions as well. Wine no longer agrees with my digestion, I fear, but I can offer you a cup of iced milk, sweetened with honey. I find it most refreshing in the heat. So this is just kind of, you get some more building here about King's Landing and what's going on. And actually, to plug our Patreon here, Sir Ezra and I actually tried that from the official World of Ice and Fire cookbook.
We did, and
they bring it up quite a bit in this chapter. This milk, because he drinks some later and he doesn't like it.
It's too sweet.
Yeah.
Pycelle actually asks his young serving girl to make it extra sweet.
Yeah,
and I thought ours was pretty good. It was sweet.
It was good. I think it's mostly just milk and honey.
Yeah,
and you boil. You had to boil the milk,
right?
Or cause it to simmer, or
right. Yeah. And then we kind of mixed in those sweets.
You add in the honey, and there was something else we added in. Some kind of, I don't think it was like no, it wasn't sugar, but it was something.
Mm-hmm.
Then you had to let it sit in the refrigerator for like 10 minutes, and then we put it on ice. It was good.
Yeah, it was. Really
it was good, but I can see kind of what Eddard Stark says later when he says like it doesn't agree with his stomach, because I could not imagine drinking that when it's like super hot outside.
Yeah, well, it's just if it was something cold, like cold water, yeah, it tastes great. But like the fact that there's a sweetness to it, I think is what kind of can put you off a little bit. But I
want to say I think Lord Adam Parker tried this.
When we did
it,
yeah.
We explained it. I think he said he tried it and he didn't like it.
Yeah, you can control the sweetness to it too. So it's just like a sweeter milk, Now, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but when you talk about the drinking it in the summertime to kind of cool you off, Lord Arryn, initially they think that he chilled his wine.
Right.
He chilled his wine, and they said that coldness on the stomach can cause some like cramping and stuff, and so they kind of thought that might have been
it. Yeah.
Why he was sick, because this whole chapter is about Eddard trying to discover what happened to Lord Arryn, and what was it? Was it just a sickness or whatnot? So
Right.
Okay. Let's see. The girl. I think the girl. So the slender serving girl that leaves. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Later on, we learn a little bit more about Maester Pycelle and the company that he keeps around him. Around himself, he is not as fragile as you might think. I love what they do in the show with him.
Yeah,
he's up stretching, moving around, real limber guy.
Right, and then then he puts on his chains and he pretends to walk really slow. Yeah, so they spend like the first like 2 pages talking about the heat and how this summer's lasted really long, and it says to be sure King Maekar's summer was hotter than this one and near as long. Just interesting little throwback there, but
in the Great Summer, they make a reference to this summer that that may not end and things. And he said they were fools,
right,
back in the Citadel for thinking that summer, was the Great Summer. So, he was a young man back then. Okay, let's see.
So what can you tell me of his final illness? And then Grand Maester goes on to talk. He came to me one day asking after a certain book. As hale and as healthy as ever, though it did seem to me that something was troubling him deeply. The next morning he twisted over in pain, too sick to rise from bed. Maester Coleman thought it was a chill on the stomach. The weather had been hot, and the hand often iced his wine, which can upset the digestion. When Lord John continued to weaken, I went to him myself, but the gods did not grant me the power to save him. I have heard that you sent Maester Coleman away. I did, and I fear that the Lady Liza will never forgive me for that. Maybe I was wrong, but at the time I thought it best. Maester Coleman is like a son to me, and I yield to none in my esteem for his abilities, but he is young, and the young oftentimes do not comprehend the frailty of an older body. He was purging Lord Arryn with wasting potions and pepper juice, and I feared he might kill him.
Yeah, right.
Did Lord Arryn say anything to you during his final hours? Pycelle says, in the last stage of his fever, and the hand called out the name Robert several times, but whether he was asking for his son or the king, I could not say. Lady Liza would not permit the boy to enter the sick room for fear that he might be taken ill. The king did come, and he sat at his bedside for hours, talking and joking about past times. Was there nothing else? No final words. When I saw that all hope had fled, I gave the hand the milk of the poppy so he should not suffer. And just before he closed his eyes, this is where he has his big famous line, the seed is strong.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And they all think he's talking about his son.
Yeah. Or even the king, just giving just the idea that the seed is strong. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Either his son or Robert, whichever one you want to take.
Yeah. So then Ned goes on to ask Pycelle, was there anything unnatural about his death? And Pycelle's like, unnatural? No. It was the illness that took him. He's like, have you ever seen it before in other men? Near 40 years, I've been Grand Maester.
There it is.
Under our good King Robert and Aerys Targaryen before him, and his father Jaehaerys the second before him, and even a few short months under Jaehaerys' father,
Aegon the Fortunate.
The Fortunate, yeah, which is, the fifth of his name. I have seen more of illness than I care to remember, my lord. I will tell you this. Every case is different, and every case is alike. Lord John's death was no stranger than any other. His wife thought otherwise. Then he goes on to talk about how Cat and Liza are related.
Right. And I kind of think, Eddard, we don't get all the different pieces, his conversations in King's Landing before this, really. You brought the recap up as to where we were last time, but something has been on his mind. You almost wonder if somebody else has planted this idea to come in here. And he's asking very specific questions. Was there a last word? And then he has to even press him a little bit further. He said Robert. Right. Then he had to even kind of coax even a little bit more out of him to get the seed as strong out of him. So he's not a real willing communicator here. Pycelle in this regard.
So Ned kind of suggests poison.
Yeah, that opens his eyes, doesn't it?
Yeah, and then he says, we're not the free cities. He says, what you suggest is possible, my lord, yet I do not think it's likely. And then he goes on to say, he said, what sort of monster would murder a noble lord? And Eddard says, I have heard that it is said poison is a woman's weapon. Mm-hmm. It is said, women's, cravens, and eunuchs. This is actually where we get this Game of Thrones being played.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So Ned says it could be a woman's weapon, and Pycelle says, well, I think it's a eunuch's weapon. Because remember, Pycelle said, "Do not let." No, Pycelle tells him to let Tywin Lannister in. He's your friend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Varys is like, "No, don't do it. No,
yeah.
don't do it."
Yep.
That was a trivia question. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yep.
Yeah. So,
yeah, Pycelle, remember, friend of the Lannisters.
yeah.
He is no friend to this King Robert, really.
Nope.
So.
Yeah. So, he says, Lord Varys was born a slave in List. Did you know? Put not your trust in spiders, my lord. So, and he even
real quick, I was waiting for you to say that. He said Liss.
Or is it lice?
Lice.
Is it lice?
So the audiobook says lice. I just people had said before that Sir Ezra sometimes says things different, so I wanted to throw that out there. I think it's lice.
Okay.
Because I always think Y in the middle of a word says and the way they say it in the audiobook is I.
Okay.
And Gur probably says it
a different way. Well,
less.
and in the show, sometimes they
it
say,
less.
yeah.
Sorry, we had a raven about it. We had a raven about it.
No, we did, yeah. Well,
okay.
The audiobook calls them Pattire, and the show calls them Peter. Yeah,
I know.
Brienne and Brienne.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, if you start saying Caitlin and Catelyn, I'm really going to get on. Not you, but like people.
Well, that one's interchanged a lot.
I know it's
even in the show. Yeah.
Even though the way it's spelled is, I know it's interesting. Sorry.
Well, and sure, even Catelyn Stark and Catelyn Tully.
Yeah.
Some people go both ways.
I know,
which is weird. Yeah. So, even the book. So, all right. So basically, one last thing. Ned asks him, the day that he fell. Or wait, does he ask? He asks about the book first, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Before he asked if the queen was. Well, okay. He asked about the book first. One thing Ned told him, I should be curious to examine the book that you lent John the day before he fell ill. I fear you would find it of little interest, and it just is a ponderous tome by Grand Maester Malin on the lineage of the great houses. Ned says, I'd still like to see it. At your wish, I have it here. He finds it, and
send it to him later. Yeah.
Yeah. One last question is, you'd mentioned the king was there. I wonder, was the queen there?
Yeah.
Why no, Pycelle says. She and the children were making the journey to Casterly Rock in company with her father, Lord Tywin. They're staging attorney for Prince Joffrey's name day.
Yeah.
And it fell to me to send the queen word of Lord Aaron's sudden death. Never have I sent a bird with a heavier heart. So now I have something outlined here.
Yep.
So that's pretty much like they're kind of done here. Like Pycelle and Ned.
Yep.
But right here, this next line I find interesting. Dark wings, dark words, Ned murmured. It was a proverb old Nan had taught him as a boy.
Yep.
Just
old
interesting.
Nan.
Dark wings, dark words.
I'll tell you right now, old Nan doesn't like crows.
Yeah.
Okay. So she calls them Trixie. They bring dark words. Raven in this case, but something.
Yeah.
So yeah, did you have anything else for that part?
Well, I mean, we had been talking about that in Fallout Friday, the idea of possible brands and who could old Nan be and all that kind of stuff. And we had talked maybe she was set by Bloodraven to kind of figure out if she's Sierra Seastar. The whole thing is just I just saw that and thought it was.
Her old sayings come up numerous times. It's just so it's too much actually.
Yeah,
they come up too often.
Yeah.
It's a device he uses to send us, these little tidbits of information. So
yeah, just interesting. I thought that, but then they immediately talk about Bran.
Yeah.
When Maester Lewin's bird brought the word of your Bran, a message lifted every true heart in the castle, did it not? As you say, Maester. I just find it interesting. The dark wings, dark words, and they talk about Bran. Just something to
putting the two together.
Yeah, just putting the two together. Especially, this is the thing where we talk about you have to read every line because sometimes Gur will hide, one line about something that's totally different in another chapter. Could have nothing to do at all.
We don't know the end game. It's like if him being a cripple or would it have been better if he died or if he lives as a cripple and all of that stuff.
Yeah. So all right. So then Ned leaves here, and he's walking back, and he comes across Arya, who is training.
She is in deep concentration.
She is in deep concentration. She's kind of like standing on one toe for hours, and she says, Syrio says this, Syrio says that. It's pretty much the same way it is in the show. And he says, must you do your standing here, he asked. It's a long, hard fall down these steps. Syrio says a water dancer never falls.
Now hold on a second. But never falls.
Never falls. I have that highlighted too.
Do you? Okay. Yeah, a water dancer
Never falls. Does that mean that they never die?
Oh.
Because the idea of falling
Uh-huh.
in battle.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is Syrio alive, and does this guarantee that Arya is going to survive?
Maybe, or there's just more to Syrio, definitely, for sure. Does he have...
There's another. I have another big Arya line highlight here. This chapter has a lot. There's not a lot of like lines you can pull, and I throw into like major theories. But there's a lot of these small little
things
that I feel like are like big deals later. Like,
well, if you were making the case,
but I mean, there's nothing like not like big paragraphs you can kind of pull apart.
No, but let's say you're making the case as our friends over at Order the Green Hand do, and you wanted to pull one line that supported that Syrio Farrell lives.
Yeah, well, I would do
there.
that. Yeah,
I would
yeah,
pull
yeah,
that line.
That's me. And
that's the one that supports it.
Yeah.
So
then Arya and Ned kind of talk about Bran a little bit and what could happen with him.
Sure.
And then he talks about her, and he says kind of like real quick about Bran. He says he'll never be able to run with his wolf again. He thought or lie with a woman or hold his son in his arms. And then he's talking. Then Arya kind of asks him, "Can I do those things?" And he says, "No. I mean, well, like you're supposed to marry a king or a prince or high lord and become a lady."
Right.
And it's just real quick. It says, "You will marry a king and rule in his castle, and your sons will be knights and princes and lords, and yes, perhaps even a high septum." Arya screwed up her face because she's like hot and sweaty and training. No, she said that's Sansa. Then she goes back to balancing and stuff like that. I just like the Arya screwed up her face.
Yeah. Oh yeah. She screwed up her face. Right before that too. Also, when they get word, about Bran, he actually takes the girls to that Godswood. And the reason I think this is interesting is because the tree that is there, it's a heart tree, but it was a great oak.
Right.
And it wasn't actually a weirwood, which is interesting. So, and they actually are out there all night long. Sansa and Arya kind of drift off to sleep, and so, and they actually both waking, when dawn broke over the city, the dark red blooms of dragon's breath surrounded the girls where they lay. I dreamed of Bran, Sansa whispered, I saw him smiling. So yeah, it was just kind of interesting that those dreams that come to them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I thought for sure it would be like a weirwood that would be there, but it's not. That's not necessarily the way of it. So
yeah. So then Littlefinger's there, and he and Littlefinger are gonna have a little meeting.
Yeah, this is neat. I mean, because you get some insight into, at this point you have no idea which side, who Littlefinger is and what his end game is. We still don't know actually, even at the end of Dance of Dragons.
So he kind of gets changed, and then he goes in and sees Littlefinger. Littlefinger's kind of sitting on his window, and he's kind of watching these knights practice here. And he says, I do like this line: "If only old Selmy's mind were as nimble as his blade." So even old Barris of Selmy, boss. I just like reaffirming how boss Barris and Selmy is.
He's a boss, but I'll tell you what, I think his mind is actually pretty nimble.
Oh, it is too.
And I think that it's just a way in which a warrior thinks versus, Baelish is just, it's different. Very
like
different.
Right now I'm plowing through the Dany chapters, and so I'm in A Storm of Swords where Dany is with old artisan Whitebeard.
Yeah.
And they don't know that it's because in the show he immediately is like, I'm Barris himself.
Right.
Well, Jorah points him out. Jorah knows who he is, but in this he doesn't. And he doesn't even have a sword, and he's like killing stuff with staffs.
That's great.
But it's just about that. So then they get to kind of a more serious question. And Littlefinger says, "I promised Cat I would help you." And he basically just gives him, honestly, more than anything, some advice here.
Yeah.
On how to kind of do things in King's Landing. He does give him some advice here about Sir Hugh of the Vale, his squire. He's kind of like, this is his kind of his report. Here's what I've kind of figured out. The king knighted a boy after Lord Aaron's death. And then he says, I'm going to send for him. And then he kind of calls him over to the window.
To the window, yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah, he says, see that guy over there? He reports to Varys. Now glance to the farther west, the guards on the ramparts. He says, are another of the eunuchs bands? He says, no, this one belongs to the queen.
Yep.
There are others, and he even says, like, this guy reports to me. He's like, that one's mine. And this is why he says, like, that's why I kept Cat in a brothel.
Yeah.
And he says, is there somebody who you trust, more than anyone? And he's like, you should have this guy go seek out Sir Hugh of the Vale. Right.
Yeah, he's also telling him, too, that the reason those guys, the reason he points out those three specifically is they're all watching who enters the Tower of the Hand, So basically, later on, Varys can say, all those different conversations where he says, how was your conversation with the Hand? And, and Baelish might be like, obviously, you have to assume everyone knows what you're doing and where you're going. It's very hard to kind of hide in this city. Everything is out there for them to see. So, yeah. And going forward, too, I also think it's kind of neat that, like, think about who... I often think about Cersei and the people who, Gur does everything for a reason. Everyone who attends the wedding, or there's a mention of this serving man passing by or whatever, brought these different lemon cakes or whatever. They're all working for somebody.
Yeah.
And even some of the lesser houses, like some of the Blackwoods and Brackens, get back involved, and House Florent is involved at King's Landing, and it's like it's just crazy how who are they working for? Where are their allegiances to, and stuff like that. So, how many of these people have we seen, like, after we're given this description, like, going forward, where are those spiders and spies and things, the little birds, who are they? So just something to keep an eye on as we go forward, because they're there for sure.
Yeah.
I've been reading and been like, who is that person, or whatever, and then you try to follow it back, and like, how did so-and-so know that this other person was at this brothel or at this inn? Well, there's reasons why they know. So, okay, all right, I think that's it for the reread. We've kind of gone over a lot of the cool connections and various things. I think one thing that I wanted to throw out to the group at the very beginning of the chapter is the Maester Coleman. Who is Maester Coleman?
Yeah.
And where did he go? And what role could he play going forward? So, because I read that and I was sort of like, wait a second, I actually honestly don't really know much about him, and so I think you might get killed or something. I don't even know. So I'll do some digging here. Sometimes as we're podcasting, I take mental notes and jot things down. That was one of the things that I was sort of like, oh yeah, who is this guy? Where does he go? So there's that. Okay, on to Send Us a Raven. Don't forget, you can send your ravens to btkcast@gmail.com. We actually have a new something new we're going to introduce on the Facebook group for ravens. I think Sir Matt kind of came up with this. The idea to maybe post, what do you call that, pinning a thread?
Yeah, you can pin something. So you can like pin a post in a group, and it'll kind of stay there until you unpin it. And I thought what would be cool if we said, hey, you guys can kind of post... You could still send us your ravens. And so still send those on Facebook page or Patreon or Gmail, but you guys could post your ravens ahead of time if you wanted. We're going to make a post or a pinned post, and you can kind of send them there, and then you guys can talk about them. And that way, when we record Follow Up Friday on Thursdays, so when we record it, we can actually kind of add in some of your guys' comments and say, hey, these are what people are already saying about it.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
So so it's another way to just kind of get your thoughts on the show, and we can. So then it's not just Sir Ezra and I, responding to it, and then we can kind of see this is actually what a lot of people are saying.
Right. Yeah. So Mr. Coleman, for example, if I went in and posted like a question about that underneath that thread, it would be the one that says Send a Raven. We could get 5 to 6 people who go through and have done the research. Oh, he pops up here, or that he's mentioned there. He could be this person, or what have you.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's really nice idea. So hop into that Facebook group for sure and join in on the discussion. I mean, it's already kind of taken off. It's great to see.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's great to see some of the people that we've talked to and about and read their ravens and their origin stories.
And now everyone can interact with everyone.
Yeah, everyone's talking to each other, and it's just great. So, I mean, you have the lords and the ladies. You've got the different knights speaking to each other. It's just fantastic.
Maybe a year from now, we'll just do a convention. bend the knee con.
Oh, absolutely, we will. Yeah, and so, okay, Gus, our good friend Gus, who keeps me honest.
He does.
I'm gonna start calling him Honest Gus. All right,
Honest Sir Gus, the honest.
Sir Gus, the honest. He sent us his origin story. He says, "Good day, my lords. Been some time since I've popped in, but been very busy with my two young squires and daily labors."
Yeah, well, I'm sure that will happen.
Great. Loving all the rabbit holes you've taken us through the last few weeks, and I'm definitely excited for the Maester study on Maekar and Aegon. I've come to realize that I'd have to wake up very early to beat the heavy hitters in trivia or stay up way too late. Yeah, good point. Unfortunately, I dropped the Podbean as my listening platform due to many issues with playback. And, honestly, if you're listening to the podcast, I would actually say that there are better apps to listen to it than. I mean, we host it there. That does not mean you need to listen there.
We do host it on. I actually think I like iTunes better. I'm not sure. Too. I think a lot of people use Spotify now. So
yeah, Spotify's pretty solid.
I've not used their hosting app. But
yeah. So just want to throw it out
but
there.
I will say you do get our episode first if you use Podbean.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's no delay in it popping up there. So he says I keep up with the notification, or I keep it for the notifications and for the whole hardcore history collection. Anyway, my journey into the world of Ice and Fire began with peer pressure. All right. A buddy of mine kept telling me I love this show as I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan, but all the hype around it sort of kept me away. And I've actually heard other people. I have a buddy, Lane, who, because of the hype around it, kind of was like, I'm good. Right. I'm just going to kind of steer away from it. You don't want to really... It's those people who don't want to maybe jump on the bandwagon, or you'll come to it in your own time, All
right. Have poor knees to bend. Hard sometimes.
Oh gosh. I walked in while he was watching a two-handed yet bounded Jaime get bested by Brienne, and he gave me a quick rundown of who they are and what's going on. So I decided to give it a shot. I won a Nook HD for Christmas that same year, and he let me use his HBO account to start watching.
Wow, sounds like a great buddy.
Can
awesome. Can I use his HBO account?
Yeah. That opening scene is something I'll never forget, and I quickly realized this isn't a show you watch on a tablet. Once I caught up and season 6 ended, I needed more. My favorite podcast is the last podcast on the left. And an ad for Audible with a free book led me down a path I don't ever want to turn from. I quickly smashed through the books, including Tales of Dunk and Egg and recently The World of Ice and Fire, which I am currently on my second run through. As always, I am rambling, but keep up the good work, and I look forward to connecting with you guys more through the Facebook group. By the way, though I live in what could be Dorne, I would proudly wear the Mormont sigil on my breastplate. Yeah, I like that. John picks up a Mormont shield when they breach Winterfell, 62 men, and at least one made it to the end. How badass is that? That's so true. So to quote the old bear, if you want to lead, learn how to follow. I love that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, one huge takeaway from that.
Yeah.
Is that he said his favorite podcast was not Bend the Knee, or what is he
yeah. I've heard of that podcast. That's actually a good one.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty well known.
It's okay.
So awesome. Thanks, Sir Gus. We appreciate that.
Absolutely. So. That's awesome. Yeah.
Tanner, our good friend Tanner, Sir Tanner. Hey guys, have y'all ever heard of Game of Thrones Fantasy League for the show? So this is kind of like this is new. This was new to us, so we thought we'd throw it out there. Is it Fantasizer?
Yeah, I've actually heard of these Game of Thrones fantasy leagues before.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Fantasizer has a good one, and it actually plays into my origin story. My cousin and his friends needed one extra person, so he forced me into it. I watched the show, and I've loved it ever since. Essentially, you draft a team of characters just like you would in fantasy football. Then, when characters on your team kill people, curse, gain lordship, get castles, have sex, etc., you get points. For example, when Cersei blew up the Sept of Baelor, whoever had drafted Cersei got a lot of points. That is actually epic.
Hey, man, you know what?
It's so cool.
I will say this. The Lannisters know how to kill people. All right?
They do.
Tyrion and...
Yeah, they do. They do. I've been playing ever since Season 3. There isn't an app right now, but it's a great way to have fun with friends while the show is in season. Also, I completely agree that The Night of the Seven Kingdoms is a great read. I haven't read the main series yet, ironically enough. Best, Tanner. Well, honestly, sometimes starting with some of that history and stuff is a cool way to do it.
Yeah. I will say this, though, real quick about this fantasy league, is two things. One, I believe somebody actually posted, I want to say maybe it was Adam Parker, in the group about who has the most kills. I think it was confirmed kills.
Okay.
But I think I went in there and said, well, I think Tyrion kills a lot of people at the Battle of the Blackwater.
Yeah.
But I guess we don't know how many people Cersei killed when she blew up Sept Baelor.
Right.
She may be the winner of most kills. But,
she might be.
Yeah, most confirmed kills though. You got where you can actually count the exact number.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's just interesting. And we actually had an episode on what we sometimes we like to call the before the conquest episodes. We actually did a draft like about a year ago.
We did. I forgot about that.
We did. It was like it was like it would be season 8. So it was like a year ago. We said who's gonna live, who's gonna die, and we just we drafted people. So I think it's in the title of the episode. Yeah, you have to go look. But so we do have that. So we are on record.
We should go back and listen to that.
We should. We are on record as saying who, like, no, I want this person. I think they're gonna live.
Yeah.
I want this person. I think they're gonna live.
Yeah. So that's pretty neat. I honestly wish I knew about that a long time ago because that would have been fun to play.
Yeah.
Picking your players and all
it'll be really fun once the
prequel
through. Show starts. Because then you kind of have no idea.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like it's not like the books are out.
Right, and I love there's points for like different things like having sex, a lordship, all that stuff.
I wonder who. So Bronn would be pretty good because he kind of hooks up, kills a lot of people, he heals some people. He gets a lordship. That's got to be a lot of points.
Yeah, he's moving up for sure.
In terms of cursing though, Tyrion, man, he's got to be.
Yeah, he's up there. Yeah, so. All right, awesome. So you guys keep sending in those origin stories. How did you get into it? Was it a buddy? Was it a friend? Did you watch the TV show first? Did you read the histories first, and then you got into the series? All that stuff. We love to hear it, and we'll read it here on the show. So send those to btkcast@gmail.com. We do not have a knighting ceremony this week. We actually, just for sake of time, we're going to skip over that, and I think we've actually gone. We're okay on time, but I think we're going to skip over it this week. And we will come back to that next week. If you haven't sent your words, go ahead and send that to Sir Matt or myself on Patreon.com/bend the knee. You can just send me your words and I'll update the doc there. Yeah. But a message, you just message the main page there, and I will get it, or Sir Matt will get it, and we'll update the doc and kind of go from there. So
and real quick, Sir Ezra. So some people ask, what is the best way to reach us?
Yeah.
So if you message the Facebook page, that goes to me. I read those. The emails Sir Ezra kind of handles. We kind of use those for Ravens and stuff that we can kind of organize.
Yeah.
So I guess if people want to specifically just message you, Sir Ezra, how should they go about doing that?
Well, the best way is, I think the reason we have the Facebook group is, so in another group that I'm in, you can just tag people.
Yep.
And so when you write a post, if there's something you want me to kind of address either on the podcast specifically, or if you take issue with something Sir Ezra has said, which is fine, but we'll go at it in the group. I would love to do that. And by, I say, air quote, go at it. I love to have back and forth conversations, and you present your evidence, I present my evidence type of thing. But just tag me. If you just put the @ symbol and you type Ezra in there, it'll pop right up because I'm the admin of the group, and then we can have a back and forth. You can tag both Sir Matt and I if you want us both to kind of comment. That's one way. The Gmail I often respond to if you have questions, like just in general, and if you just say question for Sir Ezra, and it's not really like a Raven you want us to address.
Yeah, because I get those a lot in the Facebook group where somebody's like, this isn't a Raven, I just have a question. Like today, I've had some people message me about like what's the best way to get the audiobook.
Yeah.
I was talking with someone today, and I think he was trying to get like the CDs of it, and he was like, man, these are really expensive. I was like, I just use Audible. I was like, just use Audible.
Yeah.
But so sometimes people don't have like something that they they want to ask us something that's not like they don't want everyone else to know.
Right. You can always send an email to btkcast@gmail.com, and just know, Sir Ezra, I look at those, and if it's a question about like the procedures, how do I get in that contest, or how do I get this, or what have you, I will reply to those. Now the Ravens, like Ghost of Harrenhal sends me a Raven every week, unless we have something we need to like have a back and forth with. The Ghost knows that I'll just read the Raven and respond on the show.
Right. I think what people want to know is, can they slide into your DMs?
Yeah, you can slide into those DMs. Yeah, there's a way to do that. Hey, the best way to slide into them is go over to patreon.com/bend the knee, and I will be the one messaging you there.
Yeah.
No, but we actually are. We've got a couple cool features, I think, coming out too that will help us interact with you guys a little bit more. I honestly run a couple other different podcasts, and so I am swamped half the time. But I would love to do something like a set time where it's sort of like before we podcast, or have a time where we can kind of interact with people.
Maybe like a Google Hangout or
something like that.
Something like that.
We've been thinking about ways in which we could kind of go live there or whatever. You can also hit up my Instagram though, WompRat_2M.
And Womprat's all one word.
Yeah, Womprat's all one word. So WOMPRAT_2M, and that's on Instagram. I'll pop right up. It says, I should change it to Sir Ezra, shouldn't
That's
I?
what mine. I changed mine. Yeah,
I need to change it. It just says Ezra right now. So I post on there sometimes. It's like once every 2 to 3 months I post on there, whatever.
But you're on it. You're on.
Yeah, but I'm on it all the time.
So if you were to get a DM, you would.
I'd message you right back.
Yeah, and you can send us DMs at our the BTK Cast, the Bend the Knee Instagram.
Yeah,
I run that as well, but Sir Ezra and I can. That's one that we can easily jump into and kind of respond. So most of those I typically answer. You can hit me up anywhere on the internet at Super Gainsbros. That's all one word. SUPERGAINSBROS. That's on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm very active.
Yeah,
on both.
I'm also on Twitter too, so same handle at Womprat_2 meters there, 2M.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, just a way to reach out to us and stuff. And if I don't reply, just don't be afraid to send me another message.
Right.
Yeah, never be afraid to, because it's not for it's probably because I looked at it during school and I said, well, I can't really, I'm telling my kids to put their phones away, and here I am messaging people back about the podcast. I'm like, gosh dang it, got to set a good example.
Yeah, I'm usually pretty good at responding to the Facebook messages. We're just getting to this point now. I'm glad we started the group, because it's please keep sending them. It's just getting to the point now to where it's almost like
it's a lot.
It's a lot, and so that's kind of what that group is there for. And you guys can talk about that and stuff like that. So
yeah, for sure. But we do have coming up next. Was it this month? Wow, we have to do that this month, don't we? The Princess and the Queen. We have that novella we're going to be reading through, and then as Sir Matt had mentioned earlier, we're going to get into the Dunk and Egg series and just kind of go back through those. So with
those will be
much more,
those will be our Black Council patron episodes.
Yeah, yep. So with much more depth, I think. So looking forward to that.
So all right, well, Sir Ezra, I believe it is time to sign off.
Unfortunately, it's time to say farewell.
It is. We want to thank you for playing the Game of Thrones. In our next episode, we will be discussing Chapter 26, Jon 4.
If you like our podcast, don't forget to subscribe, like us, write a review, leave a comment, or send us a raven at btkcast@gmail.com.
We will see you in a week, and remember that winter is coming.